Parks and rec and public works, and use those connections to impact neighborhoods and improve quality of life, create jobs, create economic development. You'll see on this handout, which you've all gotten, so I won't go into too much detail about it, but these examples of programs, and there's 5 principles that this group developed for Community Works programs. Strengthening communities through connections, and this idea that if you connect communities, neighborhoods, businesses, jobs, residents, and things, that you're going to strengthen communities and bring, and transit, you're going to improve quality of life. This idea of maintaining and improving natural systems, you know, stormwater management, wetlands, things like that, the creeks. Building relationships for planning, these really are the ideas of building relationships between government levels, Metro Council, MnDOT, the city, us. We've also, the program actually started with school districts and the park board from the county and Minneapolis. So you've got all these different organizations that were brought together to kind of make sure that policies could actually be implemented across those boundaries. Stimulating employment and then enhancing the tax base, those 2 kind of quantitative economic impacts too are one of the priorities of this program. The first Community Works project that was developed was Midtown Greenway. And there we took the example of a linear park, and the idea that you've got the river parkway, the river and the trail system over there, and the lakes and the trail system. If we actually connect those, then you bring a lot of impetus for development and jobs and interest in the corridor in the middle, in the Phillips neighborhood. And equally important, then you give the people in the Phillips neighborhood the ability to then get to the jobs and to the shopping and everything along the corridor. So it has that ability to kind of create those connections from communities to jobs to neighborhoods, and then people from outside can come into the area and then go to, in that case, the jobs in Alina and what used to be Honeywell at that time. Humboldt Greenway was the second project that we did up in North Minneapolis. And in that area, there were a lot of homes that were very small, and there wasn't a lot of chance for people to age in the neighborhood, because once you got a family, you couldn't stay there anymore. And so we kind of brought together that idea with also connecting that neighborhood along Humboldt to some of the green space nearby, Shingle Creek. There were 2 schools in the neighborhood that were very well thought of. They thought of connecting them with the green space and with parkway development, creating multiple housing options. So you had houses with 4 bedrooms, you had some townhomes, and you had some senior apartments. So again, giving people the option to live and grow and stay in the neighborhood as they got older. And ped and bike connections across east to west to the Mississippi River. The most recent project we're working on is Lowry Avenue. Not necessarily the best time to be working on trying to get economic development there, but you know, we're trying to get some interest and excitement up in the neighborhood. So we're actually doing a recreation of the road, bike lanes on the road connecting Theodore Worth Parkway to the Mississippi River, trying to get nodes of commercial development, trying to enhance the transit. Was planned at the time as being part of the BRT route to the northwest corridor toward Osseo and Rogers. So those are some of the big projects that were part of the Community Works program when it came to be. The Minnehaha-Hiawatha project came about in 2007 as part of the capital budget for the county when they appropriated some funding for a Community Works project. And you may be asking, why would you pick Minnehaha-Hiawatha corridor? Well, the key thing was you had the light rail line that went in, and this provided a lot of opportunity and some challenges, of course, but a lot of opportunity for growth and development in the corridor. But then they're all light rail, but you've got these connection issues. People from one side crossing to the other. People from the west side actually trying to get to the east have problems because now you've got 4 blocks before you can get across the road, whereas before there may have been more crossings. There are some issues in terms of the size of the parcels that even if you want to get through, the design and the size of the parcel in the area make it hard for pedestrians to even get through the area between Minnehaha and Hiawatha. There's a lot of potential conflict with the rail and power line corridor. So even if you want to do a lot of development in the area, you've got this utility corridor right through the middle of it. There are potential conflicts between the interest to grow and create jobs in the corridor and to maintain the manufacturing base, but also this development of condos and housing in the area. So you've got that potential, that issue in some of the station areas. And then there's stormwater issues as you have development, and then just kind of trying to have flow of people and cars and traffic and freight and everything through the corridor. So that's kind of the main reason why we did the project. The process that we're going through now is it's really important to emphasize we are not doing a study here. We know that there have been a page worth of studies. They're looking at the studies as part of the information that they're gathering for this project, but we're actually looking to create a framework that will help us figure out which investments should be made into the corridor to help achieve the vision that we're going to create for the corridor. So the county's actually in their budget, I think the last I'd seen, they've got $8.5 million programmed for investments in the corridor. So there's actually this process that being used to figure out what to do with that money that will have the best impact on quality of life, but also leverage that other private investments so that we don't just spend $8 million or whatever in the corridor, but we're spending tens of millions of dollars and having some real impact on the quality of life in the corridor. One thing I want to mention is that even though the corridor itself has some boundaries, we're kind of limited in terms of what we're going to do. This corridor we're all here because we're not looking just at this corridor, because as I mentioned, the corridor really is about connecting people, north, downtown, small America, east and west. The corridor is not going to survive if only the people in the corridor are involved in the corridor. And it's really a process of how can we get everyone together. And as we all know, a lot of people who use this corridor are coming from Highland Park and from Egan, from down south, and so a lot of the issues that we have to deal with actually are in reaction to a lot of development that's happening elsewhere. So there isn't necessarily a lot of control that we have, but it does provide some constraints on what we can do. But how can we also then impact our quality of life for the better, even though we're having some of the residual effects from those areas? The selection process in mid-2007, we set up an RFP. We had a review panel from the neighborhood, from the county, from the city. We unanimously chose HKGI, and Mark gave us a description of what they were looking to do. The handout that I gave you gives some detail about the project. So you've got an idea of the stages. We're going to do community input. That's actually one of the most important parts of this project. When we came up with the design for it, we really want to emphasize how do we get community involvement in this discussion, because we could just go and build stuff, but that doesn't mean it's what the community wants. So we want to make sure that we're all here for the next 18 months or whatever, going through, talking about vision, talking to the community, and we'll go into what they've been doing, but really trying to figure out how we're going to improve the quality of life and where are those investments going to make the most impact on improving the quality of life. We're going to then go into talking about corridor issues, from these meetings, what are the key issues that people are looking at? What then is the framework that we're going to develop from the issues, and then how are we going to implement those issues? So that's kind of, Mark left the room, that's Mark's calling. So last thing I want to go into before I pass it on to Ann is, we've actually got 4 different pieces of research that have been done prior to and kind of in conjunction with the RFP process. We've been doing some environmental assessment work along the corridor to figure out what types of potential contamination issues we may have. And then, so they've done some initial work in terms of parcel work on that. We've got landscape research, which are cultural and historic folks, and they've actually done a cultural and historic look at some of the issues on the corridor. And they're actually going to be participating in this process further on as we have more need for their input into that. We had Byron Olson, who used to oversee, did talk to the rail, to CP Rail and some other folks involved with the freight rail to figure out what's actually going on with the freight rail, what is the future of the freight rail corridor, and there've been talk that someday the rail will go away. Well, we found the thing that's not really in the near future. They're very successful and have no plans of abandoning that. So one of the things we've learned in the study is that we're not actually looking at abandoning the freight rail because it's not in the near or even mid-near future. And the last group we've got is Macomb Group, who's actually doing a market study in the corridor, and they've actually gone out and talked to all the businesses, retail and industrial business in the corridor, and so they're compiling all that data, survey data, to provide a report to us, and they're actually in the process of doing that right now.